Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Yuwat. It's Tuesday, August 30th. This is Africa 54.
Angola's biggest opposition party has vowed to contest last week's election results, which saw the long-running MPLA win by a significantly reduced majority. In Kenya, opposition leader Raila Odinga challenges the presidential election results at the country's Supreme Court. And why are deaths from non-communicable diseases rising in sub-Saharan Africa? We'll have details.
We begin in Southern Africa, where Angola's National Electoral Commission has officially declared the ruling party, the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, the winner of its general elections. But the nation's biggest opposition party, the National Union for Total Independence of Angola, is vowing to contest the poll. Clara Frank has more.
With its longtime opponent, the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, tallying 43.95% of the vote. Turnout was less than 50% of registered voters. The MPLA has triumphed in every election since the first multi-party vote in 1992.
I take this opportunity to say thanks for the trust that Angolans placed in MPLA and in its candidate to continue working on the economic and social development of the country and on the well-being of Angolans.
The MPLA has been in power since independence from Portugal in 1975. The near 44% UNITA garnered was its best ever result. UNITA's leader, Adalberto Costa Jr., is rejecting the results. He has cited discrepancies between the Commission's count and the main opposition coalition's own tally. President Lourenco says Angola has adequate institutions for UNITA to contest the results. Local election observers say the election was free. However, international observers from the South African development community say that and frustrated youth. Meanwhile, Adalberto Costa Jr. continues to urge his supporters to remain calm. Clara Frank, VOA News, Washington.
Kenya's Supreme Court on Tuesday instructed the Electoral Commission Board to solve personal differences among commissioners outside of the court. The Supreme Court also laid out 8 questions that must be answered when it makes a ruling on the August 9th disputed presidential election result, including whether the Electoral Commission's website was hacked. Opposition leader Raila Odinga, who is seeking the presidency for the 5th time, is contesting the result of a tight race in which the Election Commission chairman declared Deputy President William Ruto the winner. For the 3rd time in his career, Kenya's main opposition leader, Raila Odinga, is challenging presidential election results at the country's Supreme Court. Some critics are mocking the former Prime Minister for again refusing to accept defeat. But legal experts say Odinga's petitions have played a key role in improving the integrity of Kenya's elections and the stability of its democracy. Juma Majanga reports from Nairobi.
Images of 77-year-old Raila Odinga carrying stacks of his petition challenging the outcome of Kenya's August 9 presidential election to the Supreme Court have gotten mixed reactions on social media. Some critics mocked the veteran politician, while others have praised his persistent fight for what he and his supporters see as electoral justice.
Those who keep criticizing the fact that Raila files petitions are the people who would want to commit wrongs and hope that there is no accountability for them. What they want to do is create an atmosphere of impunity where they are never held to account.
The quest for electoral fairness in Kenya started 3 decades ago following the country's first multi-party presidential election in 1992. The late Kenneth Matiba and Mwai Kibaki challenged the elections of President Daniel Moi in 1992 and 1997.
Any of these things must be seen within the context of the struggle for democracy, human rights, and the overall good of the country. The little gains we have made over years have been from things of that nature. So when Matiba goes to court, Kibaki goes to court, you are trying to enhance and extend the frontiers of democracy.
After upholding the election of Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013, the Kenyan Supreme Court made history in 2017 by being the first court in Africa to nullify the election of a sitting president after Odinga filed a petition in that case. The court cited election irregularities and ordered a new vote won by incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, after a narrow loss in this year's election, Odinga is back at the Supreme Court for the third time in a row.
The biggest thing we would want the court to do is go back to exactly what it did last time and tell them, we told you to change so that you can deliver a credible election. You did not change. Yet again, you have failed to deliver a credible election. So we are going to do the same thing we did last time, which is that we are going to annul that election.
So if you go to court, whether you lose the case or not, at the end of it all, there's something democracy will have gained. There's something the country will have gained. And this is how we must see the struggle of one Raila Odinga.
The 2022 presidential petition at the Supreme Court marks yet another critical chapter in Kenya's history of poll petitions. Analysts say, regardless of the court's decision, Kenyans are the winners in the long run. Juma Majanga for VOA News, Nairobi.
Madagascar police confirmed Tuesday that its officers killed 19 people and wounded 21 others after opening fire on what was described as a lynch mob angered over the kidnapping of an albino child. Some 500 protesters armed with blades and machetes allegedly attempted to force their way into a police station. Police say residents of the town of Ikongo, located 350 kilometers from the capital Antananarivo, were calm Tuesday. An investigation into the incident is underway. Some sub-Saharan African countries have suffered a wave of assaults against people with albinism whose body parts are sought for witchcraft practices in the mistaken belief that they bring luck and wealth. In South Sudan, more than 50,000 fighters, including former rebels from rival camps, are being integrated into the country's army in a long overdue graduation ceremony on Tuesday. The unification of forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and his rival Vice President Riek Machar was a key condition of the 2018 peace deal that ended the brutal 5-year conflict in which nearly 400,000 people died. Since achieving independence in 2011 from Sudan, South Sudan has rolled from crisis to crisis, battling flooding, hunger, ethnic violence, and political turmoil. The ceremony was held in Juba under tight security. Libya's capital city, Tripoli, remains littered with burnt cars and bullets following intense fighting over the weekend that killed at least 32 people. Battles raged across the city on Saturday as forces aligned with the parliament-backed administration of Fadi Bashaga failed to take control of Tripoli as they attempted to oust the Tripoli-based government of Abdul Hamid al-Dibaiba. The North African country hasn't had any peace since the 2011 NATO-backed uprising that ousted longtime autocrat Muammar Gaddafi. The international community is concerned that the ongoing power struggle between Bashaga and Dibaiba to control Tripoli may continue and derail Libya's political and economic progress. Now, for the latest on Libyan political crisis, I'm joined live via Skype from Washington by VOA Digital editor Hassouna Baishu, who is also a native of Libya. Hassouna, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me, Esther.
Now, help us understand what sparked the latest feud that saw so many people killed, the fighting continuing in Tripoli.
Well, it's the same old saga for Libya, right? You have political factions vying over the control of the government and resources in Libya, and always the civilians basically pay the price. It's the same scenario over and over again. On Saturday, as you mentioned in the report, more than 30 people actually were killed because of clashes between rival militias in the heart of Tripoli, the city. That is the most populated city in Libya. Over 2 million people live in that city. And the militias are fighting basically in behalf of politicians. You have mainly two governments, one in the eastern part of the country that is led by Fathi Bashagha, who was recently installed by the Libyan parliament. And you have another government in Tripoli, and it came to power by a UN mandated body. And its mandate was to go to the election by December 24th last year. It did not take place because there was no consensus around the constitutional basis. And here we have it. It's going to happen over and over again until either we have elections or one of the people in the conflict, one of the parties of the conflict will prevail.
So what seems to be the major differences between the two leaders?
Well, when it comes to Dbeiba is a businessman who, as I told you, he was appointed by the UN mandated body. And the other Prime Minister, Fathi Bashagha, the main differences between Fathi Bashagha and Dbeiba is that Fathi Bashagha reached out to the eastern part of the country, namely, when I say eastern part of the country, we're talking about General Khalifa Haftar, basically, because he's the one that is factually and actually controlling that region. So he made this alliance with him, and with the help of the Libyan parliament, he was, given and appointed as a prime minister, and that's mainly that's the reason. That's the differences between the two men. But when it comes to going forward with the election, both of these people are saying that we need to go to election. But when it comes to in the ground, their action does not reflect their intent.
So, Hassouna, the diplomatic community in Libya, also the international community, including Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, have raised concerns about the future of Libya. Who can the two warring parties listen to?
They don't merely listen to anyone. And what happened on Saturday is a perfect example. The international community has been pushing for election for so long, and have been trying to find a compromise between the two political factions. But whenever they feel, or the political class, whenever they feel that they're going to lose power, they don't shy away from using violence, even against civilians, in order for them to stay in power. So they don't technically listen to international community per se, but what they can do, the international community, and especially the U.S., because a lot of Libyans think that the U.S. has a moral responsibility towards Libya. As we all know, what happened in 2011 and the NATO and the country has been devastated ever since. So superpower like the U.S. and other countries, especially in Europe, they have responsibility towards Libya. At least that's what Libyans think.
Hassouna, thank you so much for your analysis. Hassouna Baishu is a VOA digital editor and a native of Libya. The United Nations Children's Fund says the percentage of Nigerians getting married before age 18 has dropped from 44% to 30%. But Nigeria still has one of Africa's highest rates of child marriage, a problem that aid groups are working with rural communities to address. Timothy Obiezu reports from Benue State, Nigeria.
Serving meals and cleaning. These are some of the new responsibilities for 14-year-old Dorsey Merga, the youngest wife in this clan in central Benue State. She moved in with her then 17-year-old husband in December and is now 5 months pregnant. Her husband's family says the marriage was consensual and that the older women in the family are helping her adapt. But as a married girl, Merga cannot use a scholarship to attend school for free.
I'm actually not happy because I don't know what to do. My husband has agreed that I can go back to school, but with conditions that I go from here as his wife.
Merga and other girls in the community received a scholarship from a non-profit started by Nigerian crypto investor Janet Katio. Katio started the non-profit in memory of her late father, who promoted education for girls in the village. Katio was shocked to learn that Merga had married and had not been to school for months.
My case is a lost battle. It's so unfortunate.
Katio says child marriage is a key concern and why her non-profit is focused on educating the girls.
Most of the age parents are not educated. So once a girl gets to a certain age, they feel this child should be married, and also not just married, so that they can also get something to feed on that girl child. People, even when we were growing, and when my father was training us, people were like, what the heck are you doing? These girls are already ripe for marriage.
UNICEF says Nigeria has the second highest number of children married before the age of 18, behind India. Officials say illiteracy, poverty, and local traditions are the major factors driving child marriage in the country. Nigerian authorities and UNICEF recently conducted a survey. The survey found that between 2016 and last year, child marriage declined by nearly a third, from 44% of all children to 30%. But UNICEF Country Director Peter Hawkins says because Nigeria has a growing population, the total number of married children continues to rise.
The population is so enormous that a percentage increase, or reduction in the case of child marriage, is a good thing. But the number of girls coming into that category has increased exponentially. So the national figure disguises regional disparities.
UNICEF says unless the trend changes, some 29 million Nigerian girls will be child brides by the year 2050. Katio and her team will continue trying to discourage child marriage in Nigeria, despite knowing that some girls, like Merga, remain bound by tradition and economic hardship. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Benue State, Nigeria.
Still to come in our health report, Linord Moudou has an update on non-communicable diseases. But first, guest host Vincent Makori tells us what's on tap for Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa. We'll be right back.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, join me, Vincent Makori, as we look at the conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region, where one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world is ongoing. Fighting has erupted again between Ethiopian government forces and the Tigray People's Liberation Front. What is the international community doing to reduce the fighting? We'll take an in-depth look at the Tigray conflict on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other African news, the UN chartered ship Brave Commander, carrying 23,000 tons of wheat destined for millions at risk of starvation in Ethiopia, docked in Djibouti on Tuesday after a 2-week voyage from Ukraine. Botswana's newest copper mine, Motheo, looks to establish a major mining hub in the Kalahari Copper Belt after Australia's Sandfire Resources announced plans to spend additional $72 million to expand production at the facility. And as the world commemorates Tuesday's International Day of the Disappeared Persons, the International Red Cross says that thousands of people are missing in South Sudan due to conflict. African countries are calling for an end to a climate injustice, saying the continent causes less than 4% of global CO2 emissions, but pays one of the highest prices for global warming. Government officials, international organizations, NGOs, and the private sector from more than 60 African nations attended Monday's opening of Africa Climate Week in Gabon to prepare for the COP27 UN Climate Conference in Egypt in November. Host President Ali Bongo Ondimba told the gathering in Libreville that our continent has to speak with one voice and offer concrete proposals for COP27. He reminded the conference that the UN's Intergovernmental Climate Panel describes Africa as the most vulnerable continent. It's time for a health report, and joining us now is health correspondent Linord Moudou with updates on worldwide hygiene and non-communicable diseases. Hello, Linord.
Hello, Esther. Well, the Joint Monitoring Program report by the World Health Organization and UNICEF says half of healthcare facilities around the world lack basic hygiene services. The report reveals that basic water and soap or alcohol-based hand rub are not available where patients receive care and at toilets in these facilities. Around 3.9 billion people use these facilities, putting them at greater risk of infection, including 688 million of them will receive care at facilities with no hygiene services at all. Now, death from non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular disease, mental and neurological disorders, and diabetes are rising in sub-Saharan Africa. They accounted for 37% of the death in 2019, a big jump since 2000, when 24% of deaths were linked to non-communicable diseases, according to the WHO. Health ministers in Africa adopted a strategy to increase access to diagnosis, treatment, and care for these illnesses. Dr. Prebo Barango, a medical officer with the WHO's Regional Office for Africa, shares some insight on the subject.
So the severe NCDs are things like type 1 diabetes, which is insulin dependent, sickle cell disease, rheumatic heart disease, hypertension, and those severe NCDs. Now, usually in most African countries, access to care for these severe NCDs are usually in the urban centers, in tertiary referral centers. People that are in peri-urban or rural areas usually have limited access to care when they have these conditions. So what the strategy is aiming at doing is to capacitate the district level facilities, which is closer to the rural and peri-urban areas, to capacitate them to be able to diagnose, treat, and manage these chronic and severe NCDs. Also, strengthening the referral mechanisms between the district level and the tertiary referral facilities, but primarily to provide the district level facilities with enough, the human resource available there should have adequate training using simple protocols, and then to ensure that not just being trained, but they have the wherewithal to be able to provide this service. So they have the necessary medicines and diagnostic technologies that are available at this level of facility.
Now to Senegal, where to reduce the spread of HIV, a Dakar clinic is offering a free opioid substitution to people who inject drugs. CEPIAD is one of the first harm reduction centers in Senegal. Take a look. This is a special unit at the Fan Hospital in Dakar, commonly known as CEPIAD. The drop-in clinic provides an opioid substitution therapy program to people with drug addiction. CEPIAD aims to lower the spread of HIV among drug users by reducing the risk of engaging in risky behaviors, such as needle sharing and unprotected sex. 250 people are currently receiving treatment.
Methadone is a medicine that acts as a heroin substitute. In our case, it's a syrup dosed in 10 milligram portions. Doses vary from patient to patient.
Country data show the infection rate of HIV in Senegal is about 0.5%. The rate jumps to 9% among people who inject drugs. Most patients are men, but the center is working to enroll more women in the program. UNAIDS says one adolescent girl is infected with HIV every 2 minutes globally.
I go out into the community and visit my peers to raise awareness about getting off drugs and reducing health risks. So I refer them to CEPIED, and they can, like me, stop using drugs.
In addition to HIV services, CEPIED has become a screening and diagnostic center for tuberculosis and hepatitis. It also offers psychosocial support and other wellness services.
I am here to take my treatment, and I am a tailor.
Gardening is like a type of therapy. When we are here, we forget our problems.
While drug use is illegal in Senegal, CEPIED has the support of the government as well as other organizations like the Global Fund and UNAIDS.
That's today's health report. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Linord Moudou. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Linord. Be sure to watch Linord Moudou's health reports every Tuesday right here on Africa 54. A San Diego Zoo African penguin has been fitted with orthopedic footwear to help it deal with a degenerative foot condition. The 4-year-old penguin has lesions on his feet due to a chronic condition known as bamboo foot, which covers a range of avian foot problems. If left untreated, bamboo foot could lead to sepsis and death by infection. The zoo's wildlife care specialist turned to an organization called Therapo, which created custom shoes made of neoprene and rubber to prevent pressure sores from developing when the penguin stands and walks. Good luck, little penguin. And that's our show for this Tuesday. We invite you to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.